Tabii aç, burada da dursun. Başlayabilir miyiz? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now it's our turn. Sorry for being 15 minutes late, but because the other earlier side event was a little bit longer, so that's why we were ready. Now,
buradan değil tabii. Kumandadan kontrol
şimdi
edeceksiniz.
okay.
Kafamız karışıyor hocam.
Yok, dursun, bakmayacağım ona zaten. Okay, so I'm from Beykent University, and locally in Turkey and globally in Europe, as European Renewable Energy Association, we were promoting 100% renewable energy. It's about 15 years now. Our president, who passed away, Hermann Scheer, was the president of Eurosolar, Bonn, and in German parliament, they did a good work, include Germany also in the International Renewable Energy Agency. Now in United Nations, we have some people like atomic energy dealing with renewable energy. So this is a good thing. So that's the Eurosolar Bonn. I will mention a little bit more. In Turkey, we are organizing this 100% renewable energy since 2002. No, it's not 2002, 2011. The 12th one will take place this way. The name was International 100% Renewable Energy. So we were promoting this. Now today, it's normal. Everybody is talking about 100% renewable energy. So first, Elif Hanım, burada konuşmak yerine biraz uzakta konuşabilirler, değil mi? Siz yani uyarın. Okay. Now, we all together live in this place, which I call a global prison of all of us. But it's funny that now everybody are in prison in our houses. We cannot go out to the atmosphere. Look at what we have, our masks and everything. Anyway, the center is 6,000 degrees, and the water, and outside we have this atmosphere, which troposphere, stratosphère, mesosphere, and as you see over here, we cannot see it, at 10 kilometers where the airplanes are flying, it's minus 60 degrees. So we are in a refrigerator of minus 60 degrees altogether. Our global prison is located in such a place, but it's not minus 60 degrees. Why? Because we have sun. Sun's radiation, heat and light is arriving everybody without discrimination. This means equity, and this heat and light coming, wherever it arrives, it makes people independent. It means freedom from energy. You are not depending to anything. The source, energy source is arriving to your body, to your city, to your roof, okay? So this means freedom. The third thing, the most important thing, it means peace. You don't need to kill anybody. You don't need to kill anybody to use sun's energy, okay? So we are talking about equity, freedom, and peace, okay? So these are the three important quality of renewable energy. And nobody can privatize and sell to each other this. It's a common property, okay? That's the good about it. That's the good quality which doesn't fit the existing business activities, or somebody owns the petroleum and tortures the other one, okay? Or the other one is trying to get this for her or the country's benefit. Anyway, so we are talking about a source free of charge, a common property of everybody. And this source, we think that it goes down, it's night, so it's doing this work for the other part of the world, continuing, and it is limitless. There is no limit on this. So when we took our global prison about 4.5 billion years ago, how was it? No oxygen, carbon dioxide and methane. It was 6,000 degrees because these are greenhouse gases, and whatever is coming from sun by radiation was kept in the greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide and methane, and there was no life. But 2.5 arkadan bunu yapılıyor. Okay, 2.5 billion years ago, photosynthesis started. Photosynthesis. What's photosynthesis? Take carbon dioxide and give oxygen. So we see over here how it has developed since 2.5 billion years. And the oxygen started to increase. The oxygen-hungry dinosaurs started to be bigger, bigger, bigger, bigger. And one day, somehow, they lost the oxygen and they died altogether. Okay? Now, finally, we have 20% oxygen, which is good for our life. For human beings, it's good enough. And the plants are growing. And as plants with photosynthesis take carbon dioxide, it's buried underground. It's buried underground, so fossil fuels has started to accumulate. And that's the reason the Earth started to cool down from 6,000 degrees to today's 16.8 degrees. So the coal, petroleum, natural gas reserve never ends because they all say that 20 more years, 30 more years, petroleum. No, we don't want them underground because they need to be down there for the living space to exist with a reasonable temperature. So 400,000 years ago, there was a balance, and the oxygen content became between 200 and 280 parts per million volume concentration. So since 400,000 years, we have this living space. But the concentration is decreasing, increasing because big fires are happening. Like last year, we had Australia fires. In Turkey, we had. So this is all release of carbon dioxide. Then plants start to go again, and they collect. So this oscillation is normal. Up to when? 170 years ago. Şunu bir çalıştırabilir miyiz? İşaret edemiyorum. İşaret etmiyor. Ha, göstermez mi? Peki, okay. So about 170 years ago, 1850s, Industrial Revolution started. So human beings started to take whatever they say petroleum, coal, they have started to burn it in the atmosphere. So cooled atmosphere since 4 billion years. Now we started to pump carbon dioxide again, which keeps as a greenhouse gas the heat coming from the atmosphere or from the sun, and little, 0.5 degrees, the atmosphere global warming started. This happened 170 years ago, and for each kilowatt hours of electricity you produce from coal, we emit from a power plant 1 kilogram carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere, together with the polluting material. Because each year, 8.7 million people die because of air pollution. That's the World Health Organization statistics. Just, they die from automobile exhaust and everything. So, the petroleum, 650 grams, and natural gas, 450 gram emissions. But we have this other emissions, which are the main reason for people to die. This is air pollution. That's 8.7 million is from fossil fuel combustion in the atmosphere. And how many people died from corona? 5 million people. 5 million. In 2 years, 5 million people. There is a reason, the same reason, 8.7 million people die because of fossil fuel combustion. So we can find a vaccine or whatever this medicine, but to solve the problem, really solve the problem, we need to handle the problem and completely let fossil fuels down there. So this is the idea. Okay, I was just going to mention about the carbon dioxide concentration. Now it's 420. Now it's 420 carbon dioxide concentration in 170 years. Okay? The problem is that's what we call climate change and everything. But nobody just links the climate change with the fossil fuel combustion. Everybody is against climate change. They say we are against, but nobody talks about stopping fossil fuels and using renewable energy or using less energy. Okay, I try to be more rapid. So that's the living space. And over here we see the sun's radiation coming together with greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases, we need them over there because when the sun goes down, the next day to come back, we don't need to freeze, okay? So greenhouse gases are needed. With the cooperation, we have this living space is 400,000 years. 400,000 years, 400,000 years we have this living space. And what additional thing coming from renewable energy, the water evaporated comes as drinking water and irrigation water. That's the renewable thing. And of course, the different rate heating of the land and water, we have the moving air and the kinetic energy of the moving air, we say wind energy. And sun, I have mentioned, the resource goes everywhere, and we have some geothermal reserves in the earthquake areas. The center, as I mentioned, volcanoes, 6,000 degrees, and above in the earthquake areas, there are some reservoirs which we can use if we can take them up on top of the hard rock, hard, dry rock, which now geothermal people are trying to reach. Okay, so for anything to be a solution in energy, we need 3 criteria. The fourth one is the decision makers. They need to be in the problem, not problem side, solution side. But the first one is the resource. Whether it's wind power plant or nuclear power plant, whatever, petroleum, coal power plant, we need to have the resource enough. Second, we need to have the technology to convert this resource to what human beings need as energy carriers. This can be hot water, steam, electricity. Now we are talking about hydrogen to replace fossil fuels completely with synthetic fuels to be produced from hydrogen. So let's look. And the third one, the energy carrier which we produce must be the cheapest. These are the 3 criteria for one of the energy source, one of the energy pathway to be a solution, okay? We need to define this problem to find a solution. If we just neglect and we don't look at the problem, we don't accept something as a problem, then we just turn around in the problem area and try to survive or have the biggest hospitals of the earth and very good publications of cancer, for example. And my family, I had a cancer case. They say, okay, in Turkey, it's very good cancer treatment because every family has 1 or 2 cancer. And the biggest cancer hospitals of the world are in my country. And they have good doctors to treat cancer, okay? So these are not the good qualities, to my understanding. We should find the problem and solve it and reduce the total number of customers of cancer people as customers. Okay, let's look at this. Over here, the old world energy consumption is about 16 terawatt, and solar gives 23,000 terawatt. We also have wind almost 3 or 4 times, and this wave, tidal, geothermal are being developed technologies. They have also huge power, but the technology-wise, wind and solar became important. Hydro is very small. I prefer to have this hydraulic potential for drinking water and irrigation. Okay, we don't need to put dams and destroy all life behind this dam. So it's a problem. Okay, coming back to the other sources, natural gas, oil, coal, we talk about total reserves. For renewable, we have annual availability. Over here you see, we say that much terawatt per year reserves. We are not interested in the reserves. Whatever they are, if they just cool down the earth in 4 billion years to today's, there are enough underground. We don't want them because they don't have reserves. We don't want them because they destroy the living space. Okay, this should be very clear regarding. Okay, then what was missing? I said technology must be there. Technology was not available in 1850, so people started to use coal. But 1952, 1 year before I was born, what happened? In London, about 4,500 people died in one night because of the coal combustion, okay? This was the time people decided to go to petroleum. 1950 to 1970. 1970, what did we have? We had petroleum crisis. So it was not a solution. In 1973, the nuclear waste heat from nuclear weapon production companies, they said we solved the problem, 1973. And I became a nuclear engineer also, 1976 to 1980. 5 years, we had this 400 nuclear power plants established globally. 1978 it was understood in USA mainly that because they are expensive, because the waste cannot be stored. Second, third, people don't want to around them something they need to be protected from. Okay, the technology, referendums and things. And the fourth one is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in USA. I'm talking about. They didn't have enough money to regulate this 160 nuclear power plants and control them. 3 Mile Island accident, you know, and those accidents, these were the 4 reasons why USA quitted from building nuclear power plants in 1978. This is in the Congress Library. It's over there. Anyway, that's not the topic now. So this was out also. In 1978, industrialized countries, OECD countries, International Energy Agency, came together and said, let's have technologies developed as a solution. What was that? Clean coal technologies. I might do my PhD in coal research. I prepared Turkish water lignite mixtures to burn in the flue gas bed combustion. I was finished in 1990, but my profession second time was finished after nuclear coal scientist. Anyway, then I switched to renewable energy again. So 1978, clean coal, safe nuclear, energy efficiency, renewable energies, and the most important one, energy technology system analysis program. Now, remember, we are talking about the future, 2050. We need to have climate neutral European Green Deal. So these are all planning the future with the technologies of the future. And this was developed in Energy Technology System Analysis Program of International Energy Agency. All countries taking the picture of the existing system. This can be a city, and my colleague after me will explain the studies we make in Turkey for planning the future of the cities of Turkey with the technologies of the future. I mean, you cannot take as MAET or WASP methodology distributed by Atomic Energy Agency to countries free of charge to include nuclear energy and use this and take what we did earlier, 10 years, 10% increase, and then with these old technologies, obsolete technologies, to plan the future means you become the customer of the technologies which is substandard in other countries. So that's your methodology, planning methodology must be planning the future with the technologies of the future. Hydrogen, for example, at this moment. Okay, so this was a good initiative from rich countries, OECD countries, and they spent money, put together, and developed technologies. But clean coal didn't work. after this Rio conference. And safe nuclear didn't work. All they are closed. It doesn't work. And energy and use efficiency did work. And now, for example, Germany is planning to decrease total energy consumption in real numbers 45% to reach 100% renewable energy in 2050. This was an earlier thing. Now they are probably modifying this. So energy and use efficiency is important, and everybody should understand the same thing. In transportation, transporting one person or 1 kilogram something, 1 kilometer fastest, using less energy and without destroying the environment. So this is energy economy environment. You just plan the future energy economy system, and whatever the energy you need, with minimum energy, with efficient technologies, you plan your future. So this was the ETSAP. And the fifth one was the renewable energy technologies. This was 1976. The Bosjada wind turbines were developed in 1996. So one wind turbine supplies 600 kilowatt, the installed power, and this was good for Bosjada Island, okay? We have 17 of them to supply 1/6 of the Çanakkale city. And beginning with 1996, European support for 5 wind turbine manufacturers started to increase, but in 1980, USA started tax credits for wind turbines because in California, 5 million people died, each year 25,000, because of the air pollution over there, because of coal power combustion. So with this tax credit, there was a market developed in USA, and 15,000 windmills were marketed from the northern Europe. So this also initiated the European one. Today, we have 15 megawatt wind turbines. This is an earlier graph from Bloomberg New Energy Finance. The expectation was 2025 will be the date when we have 15 megawatt wind turbines. But today we have them. It's announced 15 megawatt wind turbines, grid connected offshore, or is developed and is in the market. So the technology now is available and the cheapest. And there are, of course, other studies in Virginia to have 50 megawatt ones. This is the photovoltaics. Again, it started in 1976 with International Energy Agency technology agreements. So now 50%, 55% about laboratory scale photovoltaics are available. Earlier they were 10 or 15. So now the technology is available. As an example, I will just show the photovoltaic electricity production. It goes like this. I remember 1990, it was $30,000 per 1 kilowatt installed photovoltaic, 7 square meters was 30,000. In 2009, it was $4,500. Now it is $400. So it's the cheapest option. So the conditions, resources available, nobody can privatize and sell to each other. Second, the technology is available cheapest. The third, the product energy carrier is the cheapest. What else do we want? Huh? What else we want? I mean, we don't need to drink arsenic when the drinking water is the cheapest. Huh? So anyway, I just wanted to repeat this to let people know that what's happening. Okay, now, yesterday over here and some other places, it was being discussed. There will be 100 cities selected by European 100 mission. And those cities, if they prove that with the people, for the people, and with their decision makers, if they agree, They will be the laboratories for 2050 cities. Okay, there is such a mission now, and the applications will be there. Over there, we see the citizens' engagement. The title of my speech was The Role of Citizens, Civil Society, plus Universities, okay? As universities, we are doing something. My colleague will explain you this, but this is important in every part of the European decisions for 2050 for future. We have the citizens' involvement because renewable energy is a distributed source. You are with the people. It reaches to the people, the cooperatives, municipalities, local people. So it must be the local people's decisions. We call it community power. The local people, with their decisions, with their ownership, they use renewable energy. This is possible, okay? Later I will explain you, this desire is not enough. We need to have some innovations stated by International Renewable Energy Agency, because International Renewable Energy, which is a United Nations body, doing very good work to prepare all countries for 100% renewable energy. They are just finding the irreversibilities, the experts, and using all methodologies. I will mention about them also. And what needs to be done to prepare this transition, okay? That's the most important thing. This is European Green Deal. We all know, maybe some of you made some applications. The preparation of the people and everybody is very important. The capacity building and readiness to use renewable energy. People should be ready to use it. They should live that way from a central power plant for electricity to come. Locally, they will produce, and this is possible now. And of course, the citizens' involvement is important. I will not go through this, but the idea in European Green Deal, which is targeting a Europe climate neutral, includes citizens and includes research infrastructure and requires university professors, research people to update themselves. Huh? They should not tell anymore the internal combustion engines or whatever to the people who will have 30 years of life, professional life, and they should not be like me. I mean, before I graduate from nuclear master, it was an obsolete profession, 1978, okay? I graduated in 1980, 1978, in USA, it was an obsolete technology. Nobody did anything. With coal, I finished my PhD in coal research, 1990. My theses are staying in the shelf because Rio Agreement, all this climate thing happened. Okay, research infrastructure. Research infrastructure are ready, and the European Union decided to spare 1 trillion euro for this purpose, and we need to, as researchers, professors, get ready to be a part of this journey and to improve, and the education should be also like this. Okay, these are the innovation tools I mentioned you. This is, there are, for the renewable energy transition, we must have 30 innovations. What are those? Enabling technologies, business models for business people, for market design, because there are everywhere technologies, so the market should be designed and operate, and also business models needed and system operation. For example, technology-wise, we need to have utility-scale batteries, electrical vehicles, smart charging, renewable power to heat pumps. We don't use heat pumps because we are forced kind of to use only natural gas. Every corner where we need or not, we are having pipelines all over the place, unfortunately. So heat pumps are an alternative, and renewable power to hydrogen is very important for green hydrogen. And Internet of Things, of course, artificial intelligence, blockchain for the agreements for different customers, this utilities with the customers using blockchains, they can make very good, reliable agreements together. And renewable mini grids, the houses produce their electricity and use heat pump without natural gas. And natural gas structure are forbidden in some cities in USA now. In Berkeley, California, for example, beginning with 2020, nobody can use natural gas infrastructure for cooking or whatever, or for hot water. And supergrids, this is in Germany, in USA, from north to the industrial places to transfer electricity from wind and solar. They are building supergrids, HVDC, high voltage direct current, very effective. And flexibility in conventional power plants. The existing power plants, conventional ones, we want them to behave themselves and make contribution before they retire, okay? Because that's okay. Whatever they do, carbon capture or something, they should take part. Otherwise, they close it, turn off. So that's the innovation we want from them. Coming back to the business models, there are aggregators, peer-to-peer electricity trading, community ownership models, and pay-as-you-go models. As you spend, you pay. That kind of models are being developed. These are the innovations they need to be made. The market needs to be designed. There are 8 innovations, and I don't want to go to the details of this, but they are being practiced. And as the renewable installations increase, everybody starts to do. Some people are afraid. Oh, those renewables are coming. What are we going to do? Our business. Some more reasonable people are looking for the solutions, taking this as a problem to be handled. After this corona thing, it's clear that the solution is 100% renewable energy. As quickly as we need to go to renewable, and how to speed that up. That's the topic now. I mean, that's why these are the approaches, and clever utilities are doing this, and others are doing this, net billing schemes. The other one is for the utilities operating the system, they need to also make some innovations to adapt themselves to the solution and leave the problem back wherever that is. Okay, so these are the innovation trends, which I mentioned already. Now, some of the studies made in IRENA is very important. For example, socioeconomics of transition. It was discussed 2 days ago over here. Our old negotiator asked about coal power plants something, remember? Our foreign affairs expert. Tell me the name of our eski şeyimiz, müzakerecimiz. Anyway, yeah, and this socioeconomic effects are very important. This transition will happen, and now IRENA is calculating how much does it cost to make this transition, okay? We need to do this. We need to know how much we spent in the long term, how this will affect the gross domestic product, welfare, and if we invest $1 today, how it will come back $3 or $5 later, okay? Because these are being studied now for all these transitions. So this, IRENA is doing good work on this. The shipping sector is very important. This, as renewable energy, electricity production became cheaper from renewable energies, now we are talking about hydrogen, green hydrogen, and producing big electrolyzers so that it becomes cheaper than blue and gray hydrogen, which is produced from natural gas. So when we produce green hydrogen cheaply, from this we will produce synthetic fuels, ammonia and others, to operate, to use in our ships and the airplanes. So transportation, decarbonization will be with electricity, renewable electricity used for green hydrogen production. Okay? So that's, Irena make this study also. And for airplanes, aviation, biojet fuels, it's still Irena page, you can find the details. And these are the socioeconomic footprint of the energy transition. They are working, and how it affects the economy, how it affects the environment, how it affects the welfare index all over the countries. So because they need to know how much they will pay for this transition. Just asking them to make the transition doesn't work. This will be planned, and they should approach to plan the future with the technologies of the future for the target, okay? When you use the technologies of the past, and you are on the problem side. That's why I said for the energy solution, we need to have the resource technology, and it must be cheapest. The fourth one is the decision makers. This can be cooperative leaders or apartment managers, whoever they are, they should be on the solution side, okay? If they are not on the solution side, they just make something to stay in the problem side, okay? That's we need to handle. And offshore wind. Offshore wind is very important for using with hydrogen. I mean, offshore wind, huge amount of electricity. Now, together with this, we need to have big electrolyzers. 100 megawatt ones are being developed in European Green Deal, 200 megawatts, and how to produce this hydrogen, how to transfer this hydrogen produced from the sea to the land, wherever we are going to use it. So these are, and the storage of hydrogen, these are problems, but people say, oh, storage, it's a problem. I mean, this needs to be solved. I mean, because the solution is in the direction, so you cannot say, storage is a problem, so let's not do it, okay? This means you prefer to stay in the problem side. No, the target is now known. Green hydrogen, synthetic fuels, and use synthetic fuels to replace in cement factories and other. For cement factory people, I would strongly suggest that they should start to work in hydrogen to replace all their energy consumption for fossil fuels with hydrogen. They have enough money, and if you have friends, please let them know that it's their duty if they want to continue to do their business, okay? They need to work on hydrogen and invest some on hydrogen. Okay, and end-use sectors are very important. Heating and cooling. And the good thing about IRENA, it is supported by all governments, like United Nations, and producing suggestions for all governments. And we are also represented as Turkey, and Hilmi Güner, I think we were suggested, and he accepted, and Oğuzcan Bey was the member. We are in the executive committee, and there are many people working from Turkey. So it's a very good initiative and showing the way to the governments, okay? Governments, you can do this like this, and they are doing a very good work. Now, coming back to cities, my point is this. It was discussed also in some place. People say, how are we going to do the governments? No, the cities will do this. The cities become 100% and start to use renewables, then the central governments will adapt themselves to this. That's why in IRENA we have buildings, how to apply renewable energy for transport in the cities and power sector. These are the reports, very valuable reports. And this is heating and cooling. And offshore, of course. Offshore is very important for this hydrogen offshore thing. And Global Wind Energy Council, we did participate with my colleague in this. They were saying, yeah, okay, we can produce wind, but how are we going to market it? How are we going to find somebody to buy this hydrogen to demand side? I told them, make consortiums with them and produce yourself and use yourself. They said, okay, it's a good idea. We'll see what will happen with them. Okay, now the Eurosolar, is what... Teşekkür. Sağ ol, sonra alırım. Eurosolar is European Association for Renewable Energy. I'm acting as vice president since 15 years. As I mentioned, your international renewable energy storage conferences we have started because we know that renewable energy is intermittent. Sun is not available during the night, and wind blows sometimes, doesn't blow. So the solution with the thing is development of storage technologies. Store when wind and solar are available, then use it when there is no wind and solar, okay? That was, so since 15 years, you can see all the proceedings in our webpage, European Renewable Energy Association. Since 14 years, we are doing this conference, and it really contributes for the technology development. Now everybody is talking about with high capacities of storage, utility scale, and I'm doing this in my home, zero energy house in my home. I mean, before I die, I will be living over there. So it's a mini grid, it's over there. So, okay, we are non-party, independent of political parties, institutions, we are an NGO, okay? All European countries, we have 10 sections. We are promoting 100% renewable energy. Now, all this, whatever is happening over here, we made a declaration today. I will just go through this declaration quickly, and I want to have your responses, okay? Because for a healthy planet, being neutral is not enough. We are asked to be a neutral only, huh? That's not enough. We believe that it's not enough to be neutral only. We need to act. Climate neutrality and net zero by 2050 are universally accepted slogans now. Everybody is talking about. Yet, such concepts are not only difficult to implement due to their complexity. It's complex. You say it, but you need to implement if you say something. And vagueness, and insufficient as goals for societal continuity and survival. They are also set too far in the future, huh? 2050. I will not be living. Why should I care about the future 2000? I'm telling my students, they are 20 years old, 30 years you have, this is your life, you need to take initiative. You will be 50 years old at that time. So it's your problem. Before we die, please, let's do it together for you. Anyway, too far it is irresponsible to demand climate neutrality at nearly 420 parts per million ppm of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere today, as I said. Likely to be more than 500 ppm by 2050. That's the way it's going. It's the goodwill. When 280 ppm is the stable level, calls for systemic action must always demand climate positivity or net negative emissions. It's also clear that the Paris Climate Agreement is aimed at insufficient goals. 2 degrees of increase, even 1.5 degrees, were already too much for the stability of the Earth's cryosphere. From the Arctic to Greenland, from the permafrost across glaciers worldwide, all the way to Antarctica, it all began to visibly melt away at only half a degree increase. Half a degree increase. Today, the average global warming compared to the actual pre-industrial time before 1750 has very likely already exceeded 2 degrees today. To distract from this error, official reports and unofficial goals alike now only refer to 1860, 1990, or even 2006 as reference years. Not only have carbon dioxide emissions risen to today's 150% of stable concentrations and are still increasing. Methane concentrations, it's good that people are talking about methane concentration in this conference, are already 3 times higher than a stable climate would tolerate over time. Now at over 1,900 ppb instead of 600. A large and sudden Arctic methane release due to seabed permafrost melting is presently the most immediate climate threat to our civilization. Equally ignored in the public decision-making process is the deoxygenation of the atmosphere and oceans, which is inexorably accelerating under current conditions. Fossil resource combustion is the largest anthropogenic factor here. This currently releases as much carbon dioxide annually as atmospheric oxygen is being destroyed. Due to feedback, some researchers project the possible complete loss of atmospheric oxygen within a few thousand years. The so-called carbon budget, the supposed possibility of emitting ever more waste gases without taking any significant risk, is an excuse to pursue business as usual. The global terrestrial carbon management system, weakened by over-exploitation of biospheric resources, is so sensitive that the slightest fluctuations in greenhouse gas concentrations and temperatures spell disaster. In fact, this so-called budget was already exceeded by the time carbon dioxide concentrations had substantially exceeded 280 parts per million. By 1990, they were already about 350 ppm. Now it's 220. It's going like this. And only the ending of fossil carbon emissions, the rapid ushering in of the solar age of 100% renewable energy supply, and withdrawal of excess greenhouse gas concentrations from the atmosphere through biospheric regeneration and other measures, and permanent removal of excess atmospheric carbon on a large scale can slow down this process. None of the European plans, not the European Green Deal, nor any of the EU member states, none of the leading parties, and no leading politician has yet faced up to this problem. And practically none of the climate experts themselves. Everyone talks about climate neutrality as a miracle cure, even though this is misleading and wastes precious time as a distant moving target. The critical targets, temperatures, concentrations, along with emissions, are all below, not above current levels. Much more powerful methods are needed than are currently being considered and debated in cabinets and parliaments in Germany, Europe, and around the world. This is tantamount to a general mobilization. Nevertheless, they are possible, relatively simple, and existentially inevitable. So we have some suggestions. These include the following points of Eurosolar's regenerative decade, earthdecade.org. You can see the details over there, as declared since January 2020 at our executive committee meeting. I mentioned that I'm also the vice president of European Renewable Energy Association. One, the redefinition of emission targets is the logical conclusion from the realization that climate neutrality alone is not enough, and that so-called zero emission targets alone are no longer sufficient. The global economy needs strategies that are capable of lowering greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere. The mobilization of a climate defense budget for the rapid phase out of fossil fuels, transformation to 100% renewables, and wider measures within less than 10 years. This will represent a significant percentage of the gross national product, many times the size of most national defense budgets. If 80 to 100% of the remaining COVID-19 stimulus funds were also spent in this way, two major crises would be dealt with one swoop. Because we only spent money just for the vaccine and medicine, then the problem is over there. So this is a good time to target the future, to handle it. So to have the major crisis, two crises can be dealt with one swoop. Implementing climate emergency diplomacy and ending armed conflict in the common interest of fighting for survival against the common enemy, fossil fuel-powered global warming. We should say this, fossil fuel-powered global warming. Everybody is against climate change. Let's have sandbags and everything, this adaptation, but nobody talks about mitigation and the real cause, which kills 8.7 million people each year due to air pollution. This includes European and global, effective and open climate migration management planning. Several billion fellow human beings will soon have to look for a new home, even under the comparatively optimistic BAU assumptions of RCP 85. These are, you don't interested, but I will not, this is the what in the IPCC report. but I will not go through this. The fourth, the restructuring of fossil and nuclear industries through substitution into renewable energy programs, the removal of fossil subsidies and structural measures and transformation assistance. $500 billion we have fossil fuel subsidies now. They should be removed immediately. There is also a resilience reason for this. As the planet heats, conventional power systems become ever more dangerous through the evaporation of cooling water, rising ambient temperatures, and plummeting electricity conductivity. Precedents are the transformation of the telecommunications industry or the restructuring of declining steel and coal manufacturing in the 20th century. This I pass. The classification of fossil fuel resources as lethal, their extraction and distribution should be declared unacceptable after a short transition period, and as a first step, they must no longer be subsidized but become heavily taxed at the source of extraction. Biosequestration, the rapid buildup and renaturation of healthy, climate-active agricultural soils, wetlands and forests is an essential and corollary part of climate stabilization attempts. Some of those, many of them are part of European Green Deal. I mean, to 27 parliaments of Europe, they come together and give a direction to the European Commission, European Parliament, because go in that direction. It's respectable. I mean, many of them, biodiversity is working. Industrial sequestration, the commitment of the construction industry and all productive industries and manufacturers to carbon removal and material product binding processes. The fossil fuel using industry should be a part of the solution. Let's say hydrogen development, whatever. It's their future also. I'm just telling my students the future career. So let's suggest to aviation industry or shipping industry or heavy industry to be part of this solution development. Industrial, okay. And these are the three final ones. Full exploitation of unprecedented productivity and innovation boost for massive expansion of quality employment opportunities for all new citizens, existing and new climate refugees. We have climate refugees, that's another problem. They are moved from one place to another. The replacement of employment in the fossil and nuclear industries by prioritized structural reforms towards renewable industries is especially welcome too, because the workers over here, Tungo, trade union NGOs, are demanding just transition and green jobs, because they are not responsible for this fossil fuel things, and they want to be also treated reasonably. All experience suggests that these renewable industries make far greater contributions to employment and foster innovation. New financing mechanisms are needed that reward long-term investments such as defossilization, agricultural reform, and forestation with higher returns today than short-term investments. Needed now are future banks that create currency structure to encourage investment and whose spending is linked to sustainable products. So the European Delegates Assembly of Eurosolar, the European Association for Renewable Energy, calls for the Regenerative Europe Decade as a sharper focus and tightening of the European Green Deal to go beyond paying lip service in the form of climate neutrality and rapidly shifting towards 100% renewables, carbon sequestering agriculture, afforestation with drought-resistant forests, and the reframing of the European Circular Economy directives into economy-wide carbon sequestering. Goal and reality must be a renewably climate positive, emissions negative Europe. Okay, so I'm finishing my presentation now. I will give my colleague to show how in the universities we do, how we look cities, and how we plan the technologies, cities of future with the technologies of the future. So this is the conference. We are organizing the 12th year now. You are invited to contribute with your papers or everything, and it is 9 to 11 June 2020. Doğancan, come, it's your turn.
Okay, welcome everyone. The second part of this session of ours about the roles of universities and civil societies for the energy transition period. My name is Doğan Can Beşikçi. I'm mechanical engineer and I have a master's degree in this field. And I'm working with Professor Uyar here for 5 years, proudly. I learned lots of things from him. And today we will discuss and see about the energy system analysis, and then we will discuss I will show the modeling practices that we made in Turkey with real city examples. Of course, after Professor Uyar's presentation, mine will be a little bit technical, but I will be finishing in a short period without killing anyone with the technical details. So, also, yeah, we can proceed. So our presentation's outline will be like that. We will see the objectives first, then the backgrounds of the problem itself, that the real cause that we started for the working. And we will see the energy system analysis, the concept itself. I will briefly mention how we can understood and how we can see the details. And then we see an example reference energy system that I made for Burdur city in Turkey in my master's degree study. Then later on, of course, we will see this modeling practices, the studies that we made for Burdur city and with the, of course, other ones. And we will finish with the future works. And our objective is, of course, you can see in here, first, we want to determine the energy system components in here, in our domain. The domain is, of course, a city itself. It can be city, it can be a country or continent, or even we can determine this energy system as a globe itself. So then later on, we need to allocate the integrations and interrelations of the units inside the energy system. And with both these steps completed, we are mapping the energy flows between technologies and the demands to see the flows and the resources flows from item to item and sector to sector. And then, of course, we are developing the reference energy system for that domain. Then, of course, we'll see the modeling practices. Here, this is our, how can say, this is the main problem that we are facing in Turkey. You can see there's two figures in here. The left-hand side is showing the energy supply of Turkey between 1990 to 2015, according to resource types. And the right-hand side, it is corresponding to this left figure, is showing the consumption between same periods according to resources. The main problem in here, everyone can see that problem. It is uncontrollable increase of the energy consumption, but it is increasing with the fossil fuels. Of course, in 1990, it was relatively small, the portion of the renewable fossils, but now in 2015, it is extremely high, even though right now it is higher than 2015. So this is our first and main driving force that caused us to start these studies. Okay, so let's begin for the energy system analysis to understand what it is, what we are using for. This is a very basic representative of an example city or a small town or country or a continent. It shows all the components inside that domain. From left to right, you can see the resources, the resources flows to the technologies that using these resources and converts to final energy carriers here. So with this process and conversion technologies, the middle one, the energy flows between the national grid, and it is of course coming back from the national grid. And in that domain, we also have some storage technologies. And the produced resources, the energy carriers, of course, needs to be spent, needs to be used with some sectoral areas, like commercial, like industrial, or like residential. And with these components, we are satisfying our needs, like illuminating this area. It is some kind of commercial need, or heating this area. Of course, it is again a commercial demand of ours. So this is the very basic representative, and this is the a little bit technical representative of the same figure. From left to right, you can see we have resources. Either we can import, or we mine in that domain, or we can, if we have an extra of that resources, we can export from the domain to the other buyers. We don't know that buyers, we are just exporting them. So in the second column, we have process technologies. We are calling this kind of things as a technology, because it is a technology that uses something and converts to another thing. In this concept, it is like a refineries. It is using crude oil and produce usable energy like gasoline, like diesel, or any other fuels. Of course, we have fuel processing, and we have emission controls, and the flow goes from left to right. The resources mined, exported or imported, and flows to process conversion technologies. Then what happens? These process conversion technologies converts these resources or raw materials to the usable energy carriers, like electricity in here, or heat, or warm water maybe. I don't know in what is going on in that domain, but it can be everything. Then these generated resources, or we are calling them final energy carriers, it goes to energy services. We have two different columns in here. First one is end-use devices. What is end-use devices? It is this. This is end-use device. And what am I going to do with this? I'm using to pass the presentations, and this is a device, and I'm using this, and it is consumes electricity, of course. This is a demand. So this is a demand device, and it is shown in here. But of course, the domains like a city, like a country, if we are going to model, this is not an important device. In that matter, the important devices becomes cars, planes, or heating stoves, or televisions, or maybe, I don't know, industrial technologies like marble, like glass, like iron, don't know. And these devices consumes these final energy carriers and so-called demands. Of course, this is not generating a demand, but we are using this device to satisfy our needs, and these needs, we calling them demands. So this figure goes from left to right, and the flow you can see from resources to processes, and the generated carriers to the energy services. So this is a little bit technical representation of this previous figure. So we have a domain, let's call it a city, an example city. And we want to model this city with these method, and within this method, we are using some parameters to represent, mostly represent to that domain with this technique, of course. These are our main parameters to represent a city example. And you can see we have 4 different topics: energy, economy, environment, and engineering parameters, we are calling them. Under energy, we are using efficiency of that single technology, like this remote, or availability of that technology, and annual utilization of that technology. With these 3 parameters, we are representing them as an energy part. And in the economy part, we are using investment costs, fixed operation and maintenance cost of that technology, of course. Not every technology has that cost, but some of them has, and we are using to create a realistic simulations, realistic model. And of course, we have some variable operation and maintenance cost, and for the fuels, if we want to import or export, there is some import-export cost of that fuels. And if we want to deepen the model, we are always using GDP or population increases or decreases for economy part. For the environmental part, we are using fuel or technology-based emission factors. It is, of course, our base is IPCC method always. It is well known, and it is a good approach. And we are using, of course, subsidies or carbon taxes for that resources, for the environmental part. And the final one is engineering. And we are using energy resource, conversion, process, and use technologies, or control volume system approach to representing that engineering part. So these are our main parameters. This is not, of course, this is not all of the parameters. We have hundreds of them, but this is the most common ones, and it is covering mostly the model itself. Of course, we can use different parameters to represent a single, a special a field of that domain, if requested. As you can see, this is my master's degree. From my master's degree, this figure is actually a reference energy system of Burdur city in Turkey. To create this reference energy system, I went there a couple of times, and I investigated the sectors, and I met them. Like, as you can see, there's a marble sector, there's a cement factory, or other sectors, and I went there and meet the representatives of these sectors and get the technologies from them. And they explained me, we are using these kind of technologies. Of course, they count lots of different technologies, but we just merge them and decrease to the just 5 or 10 different technologies. From left to right, as we talked before, there's a resources column here. As you can see, there is nothing to mine in Burdur for our energy system. We are mostly importing the resources, and we have some small portion of hydro potential and, of course, solar potential, and we're also importing other ones. These are the primary energy carriers. These are the resources, and these primary energy carriers used by these process conversion technologies. What is them? It is basically, we have 15 different photovoltaic farms in Burdur city, and it is using sun ray as an energy carrier and creates electricity, generate electricity. So we have some hydro, 2 different hydropower plant, and we have a combined gas cycle power plant as a process conversion technology. If you follow the flows, the arrows, you can see the way which energy carrier goes to the technology, and it goes to the it used by the demand technology. In the 4th column, we have final energy carrier. It can be consumed and convert it, or we can directly use like a coal. In this figure, we can say that there is no technology, no process conversion technology that use coal and generates electricity. So we are just using coal within the demand technologies. This is the important part, most important part of the model. We are calling this column as a demand technology. We have lots of demand technologies, hundreds of thousands of demand technologies, but we just want to represent them with the specific ones. So these are the specific ones. And of course, they are generating demands in this right-hand side, the sixth column. We have we model this Burdur city with 7 energy carrier, 18 active power plants, 5 demand set in here, residential commercial, first one, industrial, second one, city services, third, transportation, both passenger and freight, fourth, and agricultural demand, fifth. And we are using 14 sub-demands in here. We are using 14 sub-demands. You can see here 50 different demand technologies. We can increase the numbers, but this is enough for this kind of study. And we are using 3 environmental polluters here. It is, of course, representing the model. So we understand the energy model. We created our reference energy system. We bound together these technologies and determined the flows. But we need to use this information within a mathematical model to create a model and produce some positive results that we can use it for our decision-making processes in the future. So our mathematical model is called answer times. It is founded by, of course, ETSAP. It is IEA's product. The times, we are calling them an objective function, times objective function, always minimizes the total system cost. It is always goes to the most cheaper one within the technologies when we are talking about. But while optimizing the supply-demand balance between technologies and resources under default user-defined constraints. If you have a constraint inside that domain, let's say we definitely want to use an expensive technology. It is very expensive. We don't have to in the how can we say a positive mind don't want to use that expensive one, and we need to use a cheaper one. But if we have a constraint to use the expensive one, the model always use that constraints. So it is times is reliable and a scientific platform for global to regional, regional to national, or urban levels energy modeling, even though we can just model this Turkish pavilion itself. This is a domain. Of course, everything is a domain. This is a domain. We can just model this technology, and we can say there's a batteries in here, electricity input. We are importing this electricity inside this domain, and we have some different technologies inside. There's lots of different parts. So energy flows from one point to another within this technology, and so we are generating a demand with using this device. So even though this can be modeled within this methodology. So the answer times is very widely used for the different kind of domains. So if we understood the methodology, the model itself, we have couples of studies that made by use this answer times model, answer times method. First, our first study called an urban techno-economical analysis and modeling for Turkey. Within this study, we, of course, you know, the Turkey has some renewable energy targets that published by government, and it says we will do 5,000 megawatts. We will have total 5,000 megawatts solar capacity in end of 2023. We have that. We have that publication. So with this first study, we just analyze this target. So target is 5,000 megawatts solar capacity, and we downgraded this target to Burdur according to Burdur's solar installed capacity, current capacity. It is not current, of course. It is at that date, in 2018, that we made this study. According to this downgrade of the Burdur's capacity, Burdur needs to build total of 86 megawatts total solar capacity in end of 2023, and right now it has currently 38 megawatts, and we need to add additional 48 megawatt additional capacity. So this study, this reference, this how can we say, this scenario looks for this additional 48 megawatts capacity. So in here, left-hand side, you can see there's an example data table of two different technology groups. You can see there's a technologies in here. We have some parameters in here. So we are collecting these parameters and storing inside an Excel sheet maybe. Then if we say that this is enough, this is mostly representing the model, the technologies, we are creating the model itself. And with this alternative scenario, we collected all these results. I don't want to go one by one all over it, but you can see the general ones, and this is the most important, we can say, CO2 reduction results of this additional 48 megawatts. What is it? If we are going to build additional 48 megawatts, we will reduce CO2 total of 116 kilotons of CO2 equals to coal-based power plants. And we have some investment cost, and we have some subsidies. You can see the results in here. Okay, next study is called an urban techno-economical hydrogen penetration scenario analysis for Burdur, Turkey. In Burdur, of course, in everywhere, there is a car passenger demand. So it is like in the Burdur, we have some passenger carry demand. So in this study, we want to see the possibility, the results of hydrogen-based cars if it enters to the system in 2019, equals to the 10% of car demand in that year. So we just allocated 10% of car demand, total car demand, with, in the purple, with hydrogen-based cars. And as we talked before, there's a parameters that collected for that technology, a hydrogen-based car. And it goes all to the end of the timeline, 2031. It is, we just put 0.55 petajoules of hydrogen car technology in the Burdur, and it goes all the timeline, and only 10% of hydrogen car allocation within Burdur caused 0.2 petajoules of total energy consumption end of the timeline, which is 2031. So our third study is an analysis of centennial wind power targets of Turkey. As we talked before in the previous study, we want to aim to see the wind targets of Turkey, and we want to see the results if we implement that total wind target within Turkey. Not just a border city, but if we implement all of it in Turkey with, in end of 2025. These are all the results, and you can see it is open source, of course. You can see if you write the name of the study on the Google Scholar, you can see the results and the study itself, article itself. Here, we started to build this additional wind target on 2015, and the diversion goes like the blue one is business as usual model, and if we did not install any of it, it goes like that, the installed capacity, and if we when the wind capacity, extra wind capacity entered the system, it goes all the upper side of the figure. So these are the results you can see in the article, of course. And of course, these three are not the only studies that we made for by using this methodology, answer times reference energy system, or how can I say energy modeling methodology. These three are not the only ones. We collected all these articles, all these papers within this book, and it is published on Springer, of course. These are some important examples, the papers that's presented inside the book. Post-Kyoto period model of Turkey, optimum energy strategies by Markal, greenhouse gas emissions assessment from maritime transportation. There's lots of different fields, of course, not only the city examples, but also maritime transportation. Or we can, there's an article named Lower Cost Emission Reduction Options, Developing Reference Energy System for Agricultural Sector. We just focused just on agricultural sector within this article, within this study. And as we can see, energy, economy, ecology, engineering integration approach for greenhouse gas inventories, and reference energy system development for residential sector. Within this article, we just focused the residential sector, of course, and an analysis of centennial wind power that we looked at before. And there's an end-use energy efficiency for Çanakkale city, as another city in Turkey. This is not that much. There is like 2 times more article studies collected within this book. You can see it is collected all our Professor Uyar's, mine, and Dr. Egemen Sulukan studies about Turkey by using answer times or Markal energy modeling method. So we came in the end, what is the future works by using methodology, this methodology. We can improve the reference energy system for in-depth analysis. We can deepen and deepen this reference energy system as the governments or decision makers wants from us. And we can diversification of supply-demand technologies, technology items, or we can do sectoral, urban, or countrywide applications, or we can make a technology-focused analysis from transportation sector to single vehicle, like ships, like helicopters or submarines. Or we can make energy model generator implementations, and we can create emission inventories, life cycle assessments, energy efficiency design index, and we can make energy efficiency management and improvement plans, And even though we can make an urban scale analysis from SEAP to SECAP. The model itself is well known. We can use in everywhere. We can model everything, even though a single technology or a whole globe itself. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions for me, we will answer in attention.
Teşekkürler. Thank you very much, Doğancan.
My pleasure.
It's very big happiness for me to work with students like Doğancan. I have 3 or 4 more students. They are doing good work, and they are very capable. I would like to thank you for the young people, because now I'm comfortable to die because there are some people to carry this further. So anyway, now if there are any questions, and the SECAP is important what he said, and now we are working on Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality got some support from European Union, and they are preparing sustainable energy climate action plan. It's very important for C40 covalent mayors, and these are the similar things what we were doing since years. Just we are taking the picture at a certain year where the data is available, then trying to find some scenarios to reach the target. So earlier it was 2020, 2020 target of European Union. Now it's clear, 2050 climate neutral Europe, and now we are trying to push it down 2040, 2035, and see the effects of them. These are other studies we will be doing. Any questions? Sorry for keeping you late, but we used our time. I mean, the earlier one said. I hope you are also happy, but you can ask questions. Yes?
What do you think about the potential application of this kind of model analysis?
I'm sorry?
Potential application
Potential application.
Potential applications.
of this analysis.
Ceren,
It is of course possible, and in my master's degree study, we are also represented some potential applications like storage technologies, like new resources that enters to the system. It is completely potential. There is no decision to make that technology, but there's a potential like biomass. We assess that potential within these studies. If you can check it by my name, you can reach the studies that we made it in 2017.
I just wonder if you had any examples of rural areas and what the difference, you kept saying this was a city.
The microphone, please.
So, you kept talking about the cities.
Yes.
And I wondered if you had any modeling for the rural areas and what the differences might be.
Yeah, I mean, some of them, sen söyle de şeyde ben Afrika'ya da söyleyeyim.
Within all these models, the studies, we did not consider any rural area, but we can easily build a new model for a rural area if requested. The model itself is very easy to use. It can be very understandable, but within these studies, we did not made any rural area analysis.
The main problem is the problem starts in cities, you know. From the cities, the other places are destroyed. There are some people just moving to the Kaz Dağı Mountains to escape from the problem, but the problem comes and finds you over there. So our approach is solve the problem wherever it's created. This can be a family, your relations with your husband, whatever, or wife. And if you don't solve it wherever it's created, you carry it to your next partnership. So we need to solve it in the cities. And that's what we are planning to do. And that's what is needed. That's the result. I mean, the problem is created in the cities. If we solve this, then we can extend it to rural areas. But when we look at the Turkey altogether, the rural areas are included because we have biomass resources and everything. So depends on the domain, as Doğancan mentioned. This can be a house. One of my students made a study, a house as a domain. Whatever is coming in, whatever is in, to optimize this. But you need more detailed information.
Yeah.
That's what he said. If the decision maker wants a deeper analysis, provides the data, we are capable of this. We are about 10 people, I think, in 4 universities. With my students became over there. So for Turkey, we are ready to serve. And anybody needs to plan the future with the technologies of the future, we are ready to contribute. And now my students are ready to carry it over after I die. So no problem.
Well,
Sorry?
I think it's thank you. I think it's an impressive model.
Thank you very
But
much.
I was also thinking not so much of Turkey, but cross borders in other countries where the rural areas are bigger than the population.
Yes, I was
Like
going
in-
to say this. I have my
Yeah.
students in Cyprus International University. They are from all Africa, and with them we are developing roadmaps for cities going to 100% renewable energy. Over there are all these rural area components and domains over there. They are working on it.
Actually,
So
main
in
problem
Turkey,
is
in Turkey, I mean, no rural cooperative approached us. So when they approach, we can do this also.
well, main
enough.
problem is from my side of view. Main problem is not to create the model itself. To create the model, it is very quick for us, but to reach the
Data.
a single data is the problematic one. Even though it is very hard to reach a data for a bigger cities, for metropolitans. So if the decision makers give us the data to model a single domain or single village, we can easily create a model and get that positive figures results from that data. The main problem is the collecting the data and reaching that data. If it's over there, if it's not, there is a very big problem.
With my mechanical engineering students, about 40 cities out of 81, we did develop a first approach reference energy system. But if the mayor's request, we can go further. Now Istanbul, Izmir, and other cities are working on this with the SECAP, Sustainable Energy Climate Action Plans, which is requested in European cities. If you do this, they support you as for your further decarbonization, electrification, and decentralization, etc. Okay, any other questions? Sorry for keeping you so late, but it
Have a
was
nice
nice
day.
to talk to you. Thank you very
Have
much.
a nice call.